Hello beer fans and welcome to episode 4 of the Hong Kong Beer Project. Today, by popular demand, I bring you Blue Girl Pilsner beer, and also next on the shelf at the local 7-Eleven we have Asahi Super Dry. Taking a look at both of these cans, I've got 5% alcohols, both of them. Blue Girl claims itself to be a Pilsner. It says it's imported, a product of Jebsen Beer. However, it does not tell you where it's imported from. Asahi Dry prefers to be a little bit more mysterious about the origin of their beer. They say brewed and canned under supervision of Asahi Brewers Limited, Tokyo, Japan. But I don't think that means that this is actually a product of Japan. For our beer snack today, we have a Ottogi brand snack ramen. And I couldn't read the Korean when I bought these things, so there's no reason to start now. I'm guessing the flavor here is Mexican spicy cheese, but that's as much as I know about them until I open them. Blue Girl is one of the 4 most common beers in Hong Kong, so I've actually had it before. And one of the most difficult things about reviewing a beer that you've had before is that you really need to try to look at it with totally new eyes in order to be a little bit objective about your review. So I'm going to give that my best, but be forewarned, I've had this beer several times before. The beer developed kind of decent head on the pour, but then it dissipated really quickly. It's a yellow-colored beer, it's slightly fizzy. Much of the fizz is gone, but I still see some bubbles rising to the surface at this point. The smell of this beer is very basic. It's a little bit sweet and malty. The malts clearly aren't toasted. No real hint of hops that I can find, and it's very similar to the other beers that I've rated. The first note of the beer is this bitter pine tree type bite. I was having some trouble really putting my finger on the flavor that's in this beer, but I think it's grassy. When you first take a sip, it comes in grassy and bitter, and you get a little bit of a piney overtone that goes along with that grassy bitterness, and then you get the malty sweetness that's quite normal for this style of beer, and then it fades off and it gets a little bit sour and slightly metallic. The mouthfeel is what I expect from such a light colored beer. It's a little bit seltzery and kind of a tiny bit creamy too, but mainly just a really light bodied beer. From the outside, it looks just like any regular plain old ramen pack, and it has a packet of seasoning inside. So you might be inclined to think, hey, I ought to make a soup out of this, but that's actually not how you do these at all. These are meant to be eaten raw with the powder sprinkled right on top of them. So the first decision you have to make is, how broken up do I like my ramen? Because you want to break it before you open the bag, otherwise you're going to make a giant mess. So I happen to like mine pretty broken up, so let's go ahead and do a little bit of that. Okay, so my ramen are all broken up. I'm going to open the bag. Dump them all out here. I really decided to take it a little bit easy on breaking them up this time. Sometimes I would break them up a whole bunch more than this. But so then we have the flavor powder. And what you do with the flavor powder is you just kind of sprinkle a little bit of the stuff on top of your ramen. When I was a teacher in the Marshall Islands, the kids used to do this with the soup ramens. They would just open up a pack of soup ramens, they would crush them up, and they would put the soup powder right on the ramen, and then they'd put Kool-Aid on it too. I never figured that out, and I actually never tried it. I regret that, but I don't have any Kool-Aid here, so I'm not trying this with Kool-Aid today. It smells so cheesy, but the flavor itself is just a tiny bit cheesy, but it's totally spicy nacho. not bad. So far, my luck with salty snacks and beer has been excellent. I'd say my summary for Blue Girl right now is that it's a mid-tier price beer at almost $15 a can unless you can find it on sale, which I did, I should point out. I actually got two of these for $15, which still makes it a hair more expensive than most of the other beers that I've reviewed. Anyway, we're talking about a mid-tier beer with a flavor that, to me at least, is roughly in line with all the low-tier beers. Asahi is a brand of beer that's actually pretty common in Japanese restaurants in the States, so it may be that I've actually had Asahi before I came to Hong Kong, although I can't say that I remember it one way or the other. Japanese like to have a large foamy head that really lasts for a long time, so let's see if Asahi does that for us. I'm looking at another crystal clear pale yellow beer here. The one thing I have to say at this point is that I expected that a Japanese beer should have better head retention than the other beers did, and it does. I mean, we're not talking about head that lasts for 5 minutes, but there's still a hint of head on this beer, which is better than I get with most of my pours so far. Malt smell, typical malt smell. To be honest, when I smell this beer, I'm really struggling to pick up any smells at all. I don't get much of anything. I get a slight sweet malt smell. I don't get any hop smells. I don't get any yeast smells. I don't get any alcohol smells. So far, we're talking about a very, very mild smelling beer. Mild and creamy on the first sip. It quickly fades to a more bitter aftertaste. When the beer first hits your tongue, it has a kind of creamy and sweet, but not overly sweet flavor. And I think that's my favorite thing about this beer so far. As the flavor progresses through your mouth, you move into more of the yeast-based flavors where you get a little bit of leather, hay, and wood flavors, which of course are all going to be a bit more on the bitter side. And then the finish just kind of is an elongation of that slightly bitter yeast type flavor. The good news is that it's not overly sweet and it definitely doesn't get cloying on you. Even though this doesn't look like a very fizzy beer, there's just enough fizziness when you take a sip to give it a slightly creamy mouthfeel. And the mouthfeel is kind of hinting at a little bit of oiliness, but doesn't quite get there. So overall, we still have a very light mouthfeel, but not too light, not too watery. It's pretty pleasant on the whole, and not bad. I think my overall feeling on the Asahi is that even though it's a little bit more refined and it's a little bit more interesting than some of the cheaper beers that I've had, it's also a mid-price beer, and it's not bringing me enough joy that I really want to replace my cheap beers with this stuff. The cheap beers are good, they're inoffensive, they don't bother me, and to be honest with you, I don't really dig the more bitter leather and wood aftertastes that come with the Asahi. It is more refined, and I can definitely see where some people would like this over some of the cheaper beers that I've had, but for me personally, it's not going to be one of my go-to beers. In this case, we haven't found a good match. There's a little bit of sweetness in the cheese powder here, and it brings out the bitterness in the beer. It doesn't make either of them unpalatable, but it doesn't add to either of them either. So I'm not really impressed with this match. I actually thought that these snacks went pretty well with the Blue Girl, so I'm a little bit less impressed with the way they go with the Asahi. I'm going to be honest with you guys. The hophead in me is really craving some of those hoppy, crazy beers that I now know where to find in Hong Kong. And I'm thinking maybe I might have to step away from the 7-Eleven fridge sometime soon to try something totally different from what I've been tasting so far. So I hope you guys will stick around for the next video and see what I bring to the table. I actually have more cheap beers in the fridge, but I'm strongly inclined to go get some craft beer and give it a go. I just want to let you guys know that I'm thrilled with how many people are watching these videos. Please talk to me. Make comments, like the videos, let me know what you like and don't like. I love hearing from you. Thanks. Bye-bye.